here in Northern Ireland. I want to speak to someone who will certainly know the answer to the question. Valerie McConville, who is indeed the Chief Executive of CO3. Valerie, good morning.
Good morning, Frank.
Just explain the organisation to me, first of all, Valerie.
Certainly. Well, CO3 is the leadership organisation for third sector leaders, which is really the chief executives of charities, community and voluntary organisations and social enterprises all across Northern Ireland. So we work with those leaders to help them to develop leadership capacity and skills so that they can run better organisations to deliver better services to their service users and beneficiaries right up and down Northern Ireland.
Do you get a sense that maybe those who are responsible for our government aren't listening to you?
Well, it is undoubtedly the case that the sector is suffering due to the uncertainty that has been caused by the lack of a fully functioning assembly. So since the First Minister resigned on the 3rd of February, many pieces of legislation have now been put into hiatus, including the very important legislation around the 3-year budget. So our charity leaders in Northern Ireland were very hopeful and supportive of the 3-year budget plan, because clearly that gives a little bit of visibility, a little bit of forward planning ability for all of us, not just in the charity sector, but across all sectors in Northern Ireland. So the fact that the budget is now in hiatus and can't actually be progressed at the moment is very disappointing for us.
Where does that, or how does that make its mark on the ground?
So a number of things, really. Firstly, a number of funding decisions are being delayed. A number of important pieces of legislation are being delayed as well. But one good example is with regard to the European Social Fund, or ESF. So ESF funding is applied to around about 67 charity and community voluntary groups across Northern Ireland, and they're serving around 17,000 people. And often, Frank, these are the most vulnerable people in our society. So that ESF funding is vital, and in its absence, we are relying on the Assembly to match that funding and bridge the gap. So currently there's a shortfall of around £8 million. We understand that the Finance Minister has actually proposed some solutions to the Department for Economy to meet the funding not already matched. And our members do need urgent clarification on this. So CO3 is calling on all our MLAs to urge Minister Lyons and his colleagues in the Department for Economy to sign off that match funding ahead of the 31st of March deadline.
And is that simply down to a decision having to be made on the back of Brexit?
Well, in terms of the ASF funding, it is. So there will be funding come on stream next year in April 2023 under the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which will replace the European Social Fund. But obviously what we currently have is a gap between the European Social Fund ending and the UK Shared Prosperity Fund kicking in. So it's really that gap that has caused the problem. Now, some of the funding has been matched by the Department for Communities, so we know that this can be done, but there's a gap which we need the Department for Economy now to match, so that organisations, for example, such as the East Belfast Mission, who run programmes around support for homeless people, employability programmes and community outreach programmes, can get on with the very urgent and important business of serving the people that they're looking after.
So how worried would you be then if an executive isn't formed after the 5th of May?
Well, clearly that is bad news for everyone in Northern Ireland, regardless of their area of work, and no one wants to see that happen. So, there are some political figures who would be more than happy to see it happen. Well, that may be the case. I think most people who are trying to run organisations, whether that's in the private sector, the public sector, or indeed the third sector, really want to see political stability in Northern Ireland and the reforming of the Assembly after the elections. And clearly that is something that we are asking for. So we really want to see our political leaders commit to restoring the executive as soon as possible after the elections, and to nominating ministers who are able to get back to the important decision making, so that everyone across our society has that sense of certainty and predictability in terms of what may happen in the future.
It is a very concerning time, isn't it? Because we've the uncertainty around our local political future, and then on a global or European scale for sure, and maybe even on a global scale, you've the British government focusing on the trauma that's happening in Ukraine. We may be about to enter an incredibly difficult period in our lives.
Yes, indeed. And you know, we've been through a fairly difficult period over the last 2 years. And, you know, it is a difficult time for everyone. But certainly in terms of our members, we do want to urge all of our political representatives to find a way to work together to move forward, to get the Assembly back up and the executive back up and running as soon as possible, and to find a way forward on very important legislation like the budget, for example. You know, we are aware that the Finance Minister has said he can't take the budget through the Assembly without executive approval. So we're really urging all the parties to come together in Northern Ireland and work through every possible avenue to find an agreeable solution.
Okay, Valerie, appreciate your time. Thank you indeed, Valerie McConville.